Hi, I'm
Sure.
Dave March, and welcome to the Land of Confusion show, the Ricochet show where we interview members. And this is my co-host, Don Tillman.
I'm Don Tillman, the co-host, sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
Here for the ride,
Mm-hmm.
and regular conversation and stuff. And who do we have today?
We have Vince Guerra,
Hello.
noted
Hi.
writer of multiple books here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hence the background you have with the books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do I have any books back there? They're not
No,
mine.
me. I put up my some of my book collection here. Basically, I'm using what's called XSplit VCam, and I could put up a bunch of images, but I felt like having all the books that are actually to my right behind me.
Right.
Oh, so you've got a background of your actual room.
Yeah, because the originally when I set up my office space, my computer was facing this way, which you would have seen these books, but the power plug was off, so I moved the desk, and now I just put up pictures of what things look like.
Yeah, we're total
How
book
cool
nerds
is the
in our
21st
house, so whenever
century,
there's
huh?
a Zoom call,
Sorry,
whenever
what was
there's
that,
a
Vince?
Zoom anything online, we're always looking at the books in the background, thinking, "Oh, I want that." Oh, hey, you read that?
Yeah,
we
apparently
definitely
there's a whole like business now for people to like go and like say figure out what best way to display everything in their Zoom call.
Oh yeah. And there's a Twitter feed called like "Rate My Zoom Background" or something like that.
Exactly.
And they critique the various books and so forth in the background. It's kind of funny. Okay, put that in the notes. Okay.
probably write just as much information on how you set up the actual camera setup, because man, I had to put my engineering skills to work in order to get to the right height, the right distance, the right everything.
Well, it worked out for me. My camera fits on top of my monitor.
I'm just winging it with an iPad here. So
would be using my laptop, except I dropped it the other day and just thing completely died out on me. So now I'm on the phone until the laptop gets fixed. Which are a writer, that's a little difficult to deal with.
So
yeah, but yeah, and then of course some people have some embarrassing stuff in their backgrounds. I guess I'm okay. I think one of the best would be, if you're going to pop it in, would be like a SpongeBob background, or like a famous meme or something. It's just always, like Flintstones, or, something really just silly.
I've been actually noticed you have quite a few guitars in your background. You got definitely pretty legit.
Yeah, I got the guitars. I'm sorry, you want what, these?
Yeah, tell me about those.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of them. I'm a guitar player.
Really?
Yeah. Three of them are Rickenbackers. I sort of fell in love with the Rickenbacker, famous for the 12 string that is played by the Byrds, the Beatles, and Tom Petty and all. And there's a 12 string Rick there. And then one day I tried it with just 6 strings, and I said, "Holy crap, this is a great sounding 6-string guitar too." So I got a second one, and there's a bass, and there's a Strat, and there are a couple guilds.
Yeah, my oldest daughter is just now getting into guitar. We got several piano players, and then hopefully one guitar player, and I'm really hoping for a violin player, because that's what I love here. And violin.
Yeah, the piano's over here.
That's a little too much.
So looking at your bio, you grew up in California, where Don is, but you decided
no. Southern California is very different.
Yeah, same here, Southern California. Different world, Northern California.
Different world, Northern California. Okay. Don't ever get them confused.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California. Thousand Oaks is where I grew up, where I went to high school. But I spent a lot of time in Venice and Santa Monica. Went to Santa Monica College for a little while. Spent a lot of time there. Basically being a beach bum. So bounced around for a while. Did the whole art thing. Was an art major in the Santa Monica College for a while, and then decided this isn't really for me. I want to get out and do something else. Was into wildlife photography, and then decided, I'm tired of the LA lifestyle. It's vapid, it's disingenuous, and just couldn't take it anymore. And so I wanted literally to get as far away from LA as possible. So there were two options: it's either Maine going up or going to Alaska on the other side. And Alaska was just exterior. So that's where I went. Sold my convertible.
Whereabouts in Alaska?
So I were living in Wasilla, Alaska. I moved into
Oh,
Anchorage.
you can see Russia from your backyard.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I moved to Alaska 96, and as soon as I stepped off the plane, it was a January day. It was minus 10 degrees, and it was beautiful. I'm like, I've found my place in the world. It's just, I discovered it's a lot easier to get warm when you're cool than it is to get cool when you're hot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I just can't take hot weather anymore.
So do you see her around? I'm blanking on the name.
Sarah
VP
Palin.
candidate. Sarah Palin. Yeah. Yep.
The former governor who shall not be
former-
named. No, we like
Yeah.
Sarah Palin. They see her once in a while. We're not that far from where their family kind of is situated, but they're really out of the public eye now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you'll have some sort of, association, but just, yeah, I never
The
actually
last
met
thing I
him.
remember with her was her endorsement of Trump in 2016, and he looked like he didn't know she was going to endorse him or not, or not.
Yeah, I mean,
Remember, it's like
it would
some
make a really good
reporter.
senator than what we have
Some
now.
reporter. I'm sorry. I was gonna say some reporter rented the house next door to them so he could spy on them. It's just back in the day.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
was a
it's
lot of
terrible.
craziness back in those days.
Terrible. Sorry, I spoke over you.
No, there was a lot of craziness back in those days.
Okay, so we saw that you so you found your place in the world, and then you met a nice, good Christian girl and eloped with her. You didn't do the whole standard family marriage.
Yeah, no, we the culture I came up in is much different than in Alaska when I moved up here. Maybe it's just it's a smaller community, lower population. I don't know. It was just, that's the country style, but you didn't get married before 30 where I grew up. That just didn't happen. But I moved up here and just, yeah, it was, we just were in love, but I was still in that little mindset of, no, we're just too young to get married. And then one day we were just driving and I made a left-hand turn, and a truck with a snowplow tore our little Saturn in half. She almost died. And that was it. The next, I just realized that you don't put off if you really want some future date. Just take advantage of it right then. So that night I was picking glass out of her ears as we were dealing with the ramifications of the terrible accident, and I proposed to her actually at that moment. And yeah, so we're like, okay, let's just do it, and drove up to Fairbanks, eloped, got married. Some people weren't happy with that, but I didn't care because that's kind of who I am. And yeah, married ever
Wow,
since.
that's a sweet, yet a little weird with the picking the glass out of the ear, but that's a sweet story.
She likes to say that she said yes because she was drugged up pretty heavily.
Wow.
But it worked out.
Now Fairbanks is quite a ways, right?
Yeah, it's about a 7-hour drive up north. So,
and you can't drive
in Alaska is relative. So anything around here, the state is so huge and so big. It's 45 miles is right around the corner, and 3 hours is a ways, and 7 hours is a haul. So our distances is definitely relative.
But you can drive to Fairbanks. You don't have to, it's not one of those parts of Alaska where you have to fly, right?
Right. Yeah, you can drive all the way up to pretty far past there. You can't get everywhere up to the North Slope, but you can definitely get a lot of places. I got lots of friends who live in villages, and some are missionaries and in and out, and they are on planes all the time. That's what they do. You just get on a plane and make a hop, and the air travel up here is just incredible. Can't look up in the sky for very long without seeing an airplane.
Right, because a lot of parts of Alaska are only accessible by plane, right?
Right.
Yeah, Ontario is a little like that. We have a big portion where I live, which is like like normal, any like Maine or something like that. But then there's this huge swath that is like only accessible by airplanes. I used to work for a grocery company, and we actually had to plan out the routes for our groceries to get there by airplane. Some of the stores. I was like, oh, okay, this is what has to happen. Okay.
Yeah, it makes it a lot difficult for those people in those areas because the prices are so incredibly high at all the villages, and so they're dealing with all that shipping. And actually, the COVID restrictions on the villages have been, 10 times more restrictive than they have been up here in Wasilla. Of course, they're the same in Anchorage, so I guess that doesn't have so much to do with it. It has more to do with the local control of the government. Our governor's kind of taken a hands-off approach, let every community do what they want, which is kind of the leading from behind as you can get. But so certain communities are completely open, like Wasilla, it's completely open. We wouldn't really feel any effects of COVID, here. Drive to Anchorage, and it's like Seattle. It's everything's masks and mandates and social distancing, and so try to avoid Anchorage as much as possible these days.
So are you close to downtown Wasilla, or how much of a downtown is it?
They're not much. It's probably maybe one of the second biggest cities in the state. As far as infrastructure, we have all the things that you would imagine. We got Sonics and Planet Hollywood or Planet Fitness and all the different, Sportsman's Warehouse and all those different box stores. But as far as big buildings, I wouldn't call it a huge city. I'm not sure what the population is. It used to be 300,000 once upon a day. But when we drive to Anchorage, my kids are like, whoa, look at all the big buildings. I'm like, you haven't seen a big building before. I travel around quite a bit. When I was young, when I was 19, I was flying all over the country. I worked for Pro Beach Volleyball, and so we'd go from city to city. And so I've been to Chicago, I've been to New York, I've been to 30 states, and been all around seeing all those things. And nothing really compares to Alaska, just for me, just because it's just so different and so beautiful, mountains and wildlife. And I had a moose sleeping in my backyard this morning, and all the different things that you can experience up here. It's just nothing compares. I do miss swimming though. That's the one thing that I miss from living in California, because you can't really swim up here.
Okay.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And Alaska's most famous citizen would be painter Bob Ross, of course.
Oh, really? I didn't even know he was Alaskan.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Well, he did the same thing too. I think he traveled around and settled in Alaska, and the Alaska scenery became source material for a lot of his paintings.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, I know him. I know the hair. I never actually knew he was an Alaskan.
Oh yeah.
Power of the internet.
Painting now.
So you've switched from the books to the Death Star, it looks like, huh?
Yeah, it's like we were talking about different things, and I pulled this one up. I got a few other ones we could. I often use this one here when I'm recording stuff.
Dr. Strangelove.
Strangelove.
Keep naming. I can name them all.
It turns out, what's his name? Peter Sellers wanted to play the George C. Scott part as well.
Oh, yeah.
And like Kubrick's like,
you just play everybody.
Yeah, you can't play everybody.
Remind me how many parts Peter Sellers actually played.
He's Strangelove.
I think he played 3. Yeah, he's the president. He was the
British Air Commander.
The British guy.
Yeah.
And then who else did he play?
Dr. Strangelove. So he has 3 characters.
Dr. Strangelove, that's right.
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
Yeah, he did an amazing job.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I think
so
Alec Guinness holds the record, though, still, of most characters in a movie. He did a movie called like something, Soft Hearts and Coronets. And basically he plays there's this British county dukedom, and he is the last heir. So his character basically murders off each one of his relatives, so he's the last one left standing. And he is also plays each one of the people he kills off, including like the female relatives.
I've never seen that one.
No, I've not seen it myself. There's been a few times it used to be on TV, and I kept meaning to watch it. I got through, heard about it, but I just haven't been able to find it.
And that's a weird record to hold.
Before. Probably, I think the only one that I've really seen other than Star Wars was Bridge on the River Kwai. I'm sure there's probably a dozen other ones that the Fight Club people will get on you about. Hey, oh, you gotta see this. No, you gotta see that. I can't believe you've seen that.
Well, one I would recommend for you. Well, there's a couple. I found one on YouTube a little while ago called Malta's Story, which is a World War II one where he's in it and he's like some fighter pilot. And it's just like the story of the Battle of Malta. And the other one, of course, is it's some of the LoC stuff. He did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy as a 5-part series on the BBC. You can find it on YouTube. And he did a sequel to it called Smiley's People. It's pretty good.
That one's been highly recommended. I've seen that so many times pop up on my queue. I've got like 30 different things in my queue and just like no time for them.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll get through them.
So what does keep you also busy? You mentioned you have 8 kids.
Yeah, so we had 4, and we thought we were done at 4. That was the plan. And then we ended up adopting 2 from Bulgaria. So that changed things quite a bit. And having to deal with that for a little while. It was definitely a learning curve, dealing with all the newness of that. And really thought we were done at that point because I don't know, the adoption struggles dealing with children and just all the stuff that comes along with that, especially children who are in traumatic situations like ours, especially needs children, where it was definitely one of those things that stretched your faith and caused you to just really want to hunker down as a family and like, okay, we're just gonna focus on this. And my wife actually ended up writing a book about it, just that experience and how to deal with that, called Upside Down. And it's been a blessing to a lot of people. And through that, we just realized that we just needed some definitely help. We needed some people to come around us and just love on us. And so we became really passionate about that and how to help with adopted families. And but then God, in his creativity and in his sense of humor, realized, no, you guys need another one. Like, you need some joy in this house. And then we got pregnant with the next one, which was a complete surprise for us because we had taken measures to not have any more children. But he was a miracle baby, and we really realized once we had him, the house became alive again. The house became happy again. The house became full of just the toddler joy, and God really used him to bring that back to a house that was really struggling for a while there. And so then really thought we were done at that point.
You'd think.
Things were progressing pretty well, we're in a pretty good place. And then the writing bug kicked in, and I was like, you know what? We just really wanted to focus on writing and do this thing, and commuting to my job. And I was really frustrated by just the lack of joy in that. Not that it was a bad job. I worked for Costco for 21 years and I love the people there. And I still have a lot of my friends are there, and those relationships are fantastic, but it wasn't what I was born and created to do. There was a creative element that God put in there and stories that he wanted to tell. And I just wanted to do it. And so throughout that process of commuting to work, I was writing a book in my head, my first book in my head. And eventually I'd go home at night and I'd start writing it up at night and try to fall asleep as I'm typing on the computer, and just trying to hammer that out as much as I could. But then through some other circumstances, we ended up having a windfall of about what would have been about a year's worth of income for me. And my wife and I were like, well, maybe we should take the plunge. Maybe we should do it. And so we tested it out. We tried out. Costco at that time had a winter leave program to where you could take 3 months off in the middle of winter and not lose any of your benefits or anything. It was just so that they could save payroll and you could take vacation time or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, let's do it. So we took 3 months off, and just focused on writing for 3 months straight, both of us, and ended up, wow, this really works. We could probably do this. And like, all right, let's just do it. Let's go ahead. So we put our time.
Let's I'm going to ask you about the about this technique of writing while commuting. That intrigues me, because the car environment and all certainly leaves you to mutter to yourself a lot, and here you're sort of like putting it into making use of it in a nice way. Did you how did that work? Did you dictate to
No.
to a recorder or anything?
Yeah, no. So eventually, I would listen to podcasts all the time, or I'd listen to Rush, or I'd listen to things that I would, or just music. And eventually, the commute itself becomes routine. I mean, you're so used to every bump in the road. I could drive that road basically blindfolded if I needed to, especially with the ruts in the highway from all those studs. It's just the scenery passes.
Let's try that.
It's
a good challenge.
Right. So unless there's a blizzard going on, it's that wasn't really something to worry about. So in my mind, it was just every once in a while, we just start thinking about stuff, and I just would turn off the radio and turn off the music and just start, writing those scenes in my head, doing dialogue, and and I would think of things, and it would just stick. And eventually I'd get home and I'd be like, okay, well, that's what I wrote, and just do it chapter by chapter. I'd be on my treadmill or whatever, and something would come to me, or I'd see something that I'd be watching in a movie, or something I'd read in a book, and oh, that's interesting. I can make a cool scene out of that and copy that down as well. So
we have a lot of writers on this little thing, and it'd be interesting to hear what other people do, how they make use of otherwise wasted time and apply it to writing like that. I think that's just very interesting.
Yeah, my wife is the exact opposite. She's just, I don't know how you can do that. I would never be able to think of stuff and just remember it later. She always just has to write stuff down in notebooks and stuff.
So things like for instance, crafting the characters and the kinds of dialogues, things like that.
No, the characters, you actually don't know them until you start writing about them. That's the one thing I've discovered is I can't create a character. You just have to start putting it in there, and the character creates itself. I remember reading a book, I forget, Anne Lamott, I think, is the one who wrote it. It's writing a novel is like driving down a highway with a dark highway, and the only thing you have illuminating is just your headlights in front of the road in front of you. You don't know where you're going, but you can get there. And writing books the same way. I don't know what chapter 2 is necessarily going to be until I start writing it. And I don't know what this character's backstory is until I've actually gotten into it. And so the characters create themselves. Eventually you learn who they are, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience when I've done my writing, where it's I don't know what these people are. Now, I either have friends who are the complete opposite, who have to plot everything out. They have it all mapped out right down the line, 40-page outlines and stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea how you could do that.
Yeah, I'm always interested, and I should have asked the other writers too, how you go about writing. How do you what do you do it in? Is it important to have a silent background or music, or some hustle and bustle of a cafe, and or if you actually write it out, or do you I guess do it to an editor or something? What for me, what it's like, what your environment's like. When what your preferred environment is for writing.
For me, it's situational based upon what I'm writing and what the scene calls for. So often I'll put on just Bach, or I'll put on Rachmaninoff or some sort of classical music and just write that way. But depending upon what I'm actually writing, if it's an action scene, because I write military fiction, so when I need to get really some chutzpah going on, then I'll throw on the soundtrack to Last of Mohicans, and that'll get me kind of juiced up. Or this last book, the Pegasus, there's a lot of it's like a combined military operation at the end of that book, and I was using the soundtrack to Rogue One. I found plays just perfectly along with the action sequence that I was writing Star Wars. And so a lot of those times, if you get like those movie soundtracks for me, where it's just like those scores are written for action scenes, that kind of gets me into the zone of what I'm writing. And
ever listened to Two Steps from Hell?
What's that?
Have you ever listened to a group band or Two Steps from Hell, I believe?
I have not.
Very martial music, very like a lot of people use them for fantasy soundtracks and other things. So they're very good. I find they're really good when I want to write an action scene or have some sort of ceremonial scene, because it's all like modern day battle music.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried putting on some Avengers music or Lord of the Rings. That didn't work too well.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, I'll send a link.
I mean, some music gets be distracting.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put on Frank Zappa or something, it's just completely it's the worst thing in the world because it's so distracting. There's so much going on.
Yeah, I think maybe anything with lyrics becomes a little bit distracting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the classical music and the scores definitely help. But I've always had music playing in the background anyway. Even when I was in college, I would always be listening to some sort of classical music, and just that's how I focus best. To write that way.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about the characters, though, that you do need to focus on learning who the one thing I'm learning now is just all the different the cultural aspects of, for instance, like Syrians or Iraqis or the Kurds. I'm kind of digging into them, doing research right now for this other book I'm writing. So I've discovered, after you've written about these people groups or these different cultures, if they're not right, somebody will definitely call you out on it. And so in the rewrite, I'm saving myself a lot of time actually finding out like the real depth of these cultures before we dig into it.
So how many books do you have out now?
So I have 3 books out. The 3 books of a 4-part series. So started with Beyond the Golden Hour.
Oh yeah, you should pitch them. This is your opportunity to pitch the books. Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Let's go.
So the first one's Beyond the Golden Hour. That one's focuses on a military operation rescue mission in Afghanistan, 2003. And then so those characters, I extrapolated it a little bit out. Where the next book was called Stars in Their Places. Basically, that one deals heavily with it's kind of deals with 2 aspects of one with PTSD, some of the same characters and some new characters having to deal with that. And there's a lot of medical jargon in there, a lot of follows PJs in action, Air Force Pararescue Jumpers, and then also has Special Operations Forces as well in Iraq. So that's the second book in the 4-part series. And just last year came out with Pegasus, which is kind of overlaps the Stars in Their Places in the time frame. So the setting is parallel. So you got to kind of go back and find out what some of the characters from Golden Hour were doing during that same time period. And that deals mostly in Iraq with Apache squadrons and with SEALs and Delta Special Operations Forces. So that's the one that most recently came out. And so that one ended in the time frame about 2008. Those characters are in that universe, and so the book I'm working on now deals with some of those same characters in 2018 in the battle with ISIS. So I spent a lot of time researching the Kurds and the Northern Iraqi Army, and yeah, excited about that one. So that'll be the 4th.
And they're
book.
available where books are sold, as they say.
Yeah, so that'll be the 4th that'll wrap up this series. Yeah, they're all available on Amazon. You can order them through Ingram, who's a wholesale distributor, and then we sell them on our website as well.
Now sorry, I wanted to ask. You didn't serve, so this is all like your own research and do you have like a community of veterans you talk to for research, or is it just?
Yeah, so that's been one of the beauties of Ricochet, actually. So the first book that I wrote, I didn't have really anybody at first, as far as any kind of technical assistance or anything. I ended up finding through Ricochet editor who is, she just does books, but her husband is actually a military weapons specialist. So I was able to shoot that to them and pay them to be able to do all the technical fixes for the first book. And so that was pretty nice. And then when I published that, told the Ricochet folks about it, some of them liked it. And when I was getting ready to write the second one, I contacted a few people that I knew, like Boss Mongo and Clifford Brown and Aaron. And it's like, can you guys just take a look at this if you don't mind? And they're all like, I've always been amazed by how willing people are to just give their time and just assist people. They're like, yeah, shoot me the manuscript. I'm like, all right, and sent it out to them. And Boss came back with so much detail on you need to fix this, you need to fix that, and in his way of kindly but succinctly telling you need to really fix this was I can't thank him enough. And Clifford's the same way. It's like they were able to tell me things you just can't learn. You just have to be there. You can't read from books and understand how this stuff works. You got to talk to these guys who know. And so when I published the second book, so they actually have endorsements and everything on that one. When I came into the third book, some of the readers reached out to me and they're like, hey, I just really like this. So the next one, Text 929, I said, hey, thanks. He's like, hey, if you ever can, do anything to help you, let me know. And I sent it to him, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, hey, I know 3 A-10 pilots who might be willing to take a look at it. Would you like me to talk? I'm like, yes, definitely. And as I'm writing in the middle of Pegasus, I'm writing something and I got confused on it. And so I shoot an email to Boss. I'm like, hey, do you know anything about this? He's like, well, let me check with this SEAL buddy of mine that I know. And so he emails a SEAL, and then emails me back a few minutes later. I'm like, oh, okay, so now I had to completely rewrite an entire chapter, but at least I knew it was right.
Right.
So the Ricochet community has really opened up so many doors. Just
that is so nice. That is really nice to hear. I mean, just writers and people with specialized experience helping writers on Ricochet. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's one of the most important things to me is that that it's a good, exciting story. It just has to be good. But two is that it has to be right. And I want it to be accurate, and I want to honor these guys. And you can't do that if you're just making stuff up. And so the getting the details right, getting the little things right is super important to me, because otherwise I think it's going to dishonor them.
So you're working on book number 4 right now, right?
Right. Yeah. So laying the research for book number 4. And I'm always working. I got like 8 books in my head right now that I just don't have time to write. But
right.
I'm trying to decide which one to focus on. So doing research for book 4, but also I've got another book, and I'm trying to decide if I want to focus on that too. It's actually completely different. It's a nonfiction book. It's actually about football.
Do you self-publish, or do you have a publisher, or do you use one of these services that'll take a PDF file and make a book out of it?
Yeah, we've done everything self-publishing. So we've learned all the ins and outs of that, which is once you type the end on a novel, that's really when the work begins. Writing is the fun part. All the editing and all the making a Kindle and having to learn HTML and book design and cover design and all that stuff. That's like, oh, shoot me now. But we've had to learn that. And my wife does so many books too. She's got 8 books, working on another one right now. So between the two of us, we definitely have learned a crash course in book publishing in the last few years.
Well, it's good. I've heard that if you can try and go out and get it published, but if you're trying to do that with a series, it's a crazy idea, because if your first book in your series doesn't sell, the publisher owns it for maybe 20 years, and you can't write more books in that series yourself. That's one reason I'm looking at self-publishing whenever I get back to writing my beast.
So yeah, I think it's wonderful that we can self-publish like this. That I'm using the we, excluding myself, but that it's there's services. I think what's called Lulu, is that right? but there are a bunch of them, right? That will make shippable ready books on demand for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that means people can get more esoteric stuff out without having to go through a publisher and just do it themselves. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, we've done all of our books through Ingram, which ends up you pay about $50 for the listing. You could pay somebody else to do the cover, learn Photoshop and do it yourself. So I had somebody else did my first cover. I paid about $300 for that, and it was all right. But I realized I can do this myself, and so I taught myself Photoshop and did my own second cover and my own third cover. So now we do that ourselves too, and save ourselves that a little bit, because we found that we're so perfectionist. It has to be like exactly right, and any little flaw, even if like just a little font on the background or something, like I don't like that, and trying to get the designer to change that for you, that's just like pulling nails. So we found that in order to maintain creative control over everything that we produce, it's just easier if you do it yourself.
Right.
Also, my wife is an amazing editor.
Well, that's a useful skill to have.
Don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, we have one more from the group. We have a question from Aaron Miller.
Oh.
He wanted to know, have you ever considered script writing? Being both a novelist and the host of our Movie Question of the Week series, he had to wonder.
Yeah, actually, well, I did write once upon a time when I was in high school. When I was traveling, I would write in one of those composition notebooks. I actually wrote a Dazed and Confused style script about our exploits, which was probably something that I was happy that I burned when I came to know Jesus, so my kids wouldn't find it. But as I've been writing these books, these novels, you always think in the back of your mind, if I write this novel, hopefully somebody's gonna want to buy the movie rights to it. And so I kind of dabbled in looking into, well, I'll just write the screenplay for that and have it ready to go. And if somebody wants to buy the movie rights, well, here's the screenplay too, but never actually got around to that. But most of my creative ideas, I'm just putting into novel form. But yeah, it has been in the back of my mind, would this make a good script, or would it make a better movie? But breaking into the movie business and selling scripts is so much of a hurdle. It's like not even really something that you would consider. But I do rewrite movies in my head all the time. So
well, if it's got a helicopter chase, it's good for film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see a movie that I don't like the script, and I like to just change it and rewrite it in my head and put it out there instead.
Just curious about something. I didn't really prep on this one, didn't think too much about it, but you mentioned you've had a come to Jesus moment. Would you like to share with the audience a bit about your religious conversion? Or I know that's something that often has been discussed on some of our other episodes.
Yeah, no, for me, it was, I was a dedicated atheist. So I was a reprobate kid from LA who was happy with every vice and not looking for anything outside of me. My life was just, I was happy in my hedonism and wasn't looking for anything more than that. But as I was actually a student of justice and history. So I was a history major in college and a justice major. So in that, I realized I came to two universal truths I just couldn't get away from. The more I studied history, the more I studied crime, I'd study serial killers and realized that there's the propensity for humans to do evil to one another is unimaginable. And there's such a thing as evil. So you can't study history and you can't study criminology without recognizing that there's such a thing as evil. And it really came to head to me one day when I was studying these two guys named Whitaker and Norris, who were two serial killers from the 70s in California. And they did some awful things. And as I was studying them, I was thinking, that's pure evil. And then later on, I had a revelation. It was like, wait a minute, if there's such a thing as pure evil, then there must be such a thing as pure good, because one can't exist without the other. You can't have light without darkness. You can't have warmth without cold. You have to have some sort of framework to understand this. And God was working in that in the back of my head, like, oh, so the more I'd study that, look into it, and my wife at the same time was having her own wrestles with God at that point, because we were doing things that we shouldn't have done. Much our story is kind of scandalous. I'll tell you some other time.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There's some stories that you tell at the bar, and some stories you tell at the on the podcast. So we get it.
right, yeah, you and me and some of our closest rowdy friends will get together one day, and I'll tell you too, in a dimly lit bar. But anyway,
until then, details are unimportant.
Right.
Yeah, we're both coming to Jesus in our own way. And so she became a Christian, rededicated. She was born into a family that was, her grandma was a believer, and so she had that background. And so she kind of came back to that a lot faster than I did. And so seeing the way God was working in her life, she got rebaptized, and I was like, okay. And she'd invite me to church, and I'd be like, yeah, I want to watch a football game. But eventually, it was like, the more I would study, the more was God working on my heart, and I'd say, okay, well, I'd go with her. And I don't have that come to mind with Jesus where I like raised my hand and walked up to the front of the altar, but he was definitely working in the back of my mind. So one day I was like, yeah, this stuff is true. And okay, yeah, I guess I'm a Christian now, because I can't deny this truth, and I can't deny this reality. And then around the same time, our son was born. Our first was born around 2000, and that changes everything. So I got baptized in 2000, I think, and we've just grown in that ever since.
Okay, cool. Just go through this. So how did you, like, you mentioned your 2 children from Bulgaria, and your wife wrote a book about it. So maybe I should go read the book, but it just does seem to be like, why did you end up adopting in a foreign land like that?
We wanted to adopt, and I don't know exactly why we went to the international route, but it was kind of clear to us that we both wanted to do international adoption. And the reason we chose Bulgaria was just simply because they had a need. There was a waiting child program through the adoption agency that we were going to go use, and they had a sort of like a 2-for-1 deal with there, where you could adopt 1 child or 2, and the court fees and everything were all the same.
Oh, okay.
So you didn't have to pay
Such a deal.
Yeah, you didn't have to
2-for-1 sale.
Lawyer fees and all that stuff. So, and I was just, okay, well, let's just do 2 then, because there's this other child that needs it as well. And I think I was kind of protecting us from thinking too much about how hard this is going to be, because it was just what we needed to do.
Okay. Yeah, Dawn kind of lucked out on having 2 at a time.
Yeah, I had twins.
Yeah, which is probably in some ways on her much harder.
Well, actually, the first 3 years are hell. I mean, but after that, they take care of each other. So it overall nice, and I get to learn how to. I get valuable skills like learning how to change a diaper with 1 hand. That's very, very useful.
That's the one thing I've learned through fatherhood is I can do anything left hand or anything one-handed now, pretty much.
Yeah.
I can dice onions, I can change batteries, I can whatever. I can't fold a burrito with 1 hand. That's one thing I've discovered. Burritos are very important to my life.
I understand.
Pretty much everything else I can do one-handed while holding a baby.
Very good.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
let's see. Anything interesting on Ricochet that you've been? I haven't checked with your postings.
Well, I just kind of remembered the one thing I wanted to ask Vince about. So you got you started your own movie fights on Ricochet, I believe.
Oh, yes.
And so you were a big fan of Mr. Andy Signor.
Yeah, so when I was commuting, I would listen to the movie fights on Screen Junkies.
Yeah.
And so through that was pretty fun. That was just what I would listen to when I was commuting, when I wasn't writing in my head. And that show's still on, I think. Maybe
the movie fights doesn't seem to be on, but they're making more honest trailers.
Yeah, Yeah, it all kind of went downhill when Andy Signore left. He was kind of
Yeah,
part
I
of that
agree.
cancel. He was part of that cancel culture. One of the first ones, actually.
Yeah,
And
I'm actually
the erroneous.
I am a friend of his, so I went to his birthday party last year. That was pretty cool on Zoom. But if you are interested, he has several new channels if you want to connect with him.
Yeah, Popcorn Planet. He's got some good stuff on there.
Okay.
So he was kind of the inspiration on that. So as one day I wrote up a little post, was like, hey, you guys ever heard of this show called Movie Fights? You guys want to do like a Ricochet version? And so for people who don't know, every Saturday we post up on a question of the week. So you write a movie question, and it can be anything. I think the first one was, what's the best movie adaptation of a book? And so everybody puts their comments in, what they think the best is, and then we fight about it all week. And so by the end of the week, by Friday night, whoever has the most likes on their comment wins, and they get to choose the next week's fight. So we're up to about 49 now. And it's been fun to see the different personalities of the different people who put in, and there's always a fight itself to like get the first answer in, because there's multiples that'll people wanted the same answer. So getting it in early is
people don't tend to stay around the entire thing, unfortunately. So if you're not within the first 20 comments, I don't know who tends to win. Is it the first 20 comments, or is it often something buried on page 10?
Yeah, sometimes I think we've had winners before that have been on like the 89th comment. It's just, you never know what's going to hit and what's not going to hit. But we did have to put on the stipulation that you can't use Princess Bride, and you can't use the Casablanca as answers anymore for wins, because they were just getting too many wins. We had like 4 weeks in a row where they were just like swarming it, like, hey, we got to put a stop to this if we're going to survive. This thing's going to continue to last. With the stop, make it a little bit more interesting. So put that stipulation on. And it's been fun to lift the different personalities as well. So like LC and I disagree on just about everything movie related, but she's one of my favorite fighters. And so Charlotte does, you end up realizing what kind of movies you really associate with. You people have the same likes. Like me and Myth White Male are like spirit animals when it comes to movies, and Charlotte and what's the other one? Used to Scrub. I get along when it comes to movies so much. Yeah, you get to know that community.
Well, if you want, fun. I know you're kind of new to our show, so we definitely have done an interview with Myth White Male.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah,
okay,
it's fun to see them get the different perspectives and put a face to the name.
Yep.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's our core strength.
And if you want to watch a show and get really into depth on Don's guitar collection, you watch the episode with Aaron Miller, because the two of them go off on guitars for about 20 minutes. So
yeah, no, I saw the one with Jenna Stocker, and I didn't realize that she had the Minnesota accent. So that was kind of
that was fun.
That was fun.
I love that. I'm a sucker for the Minnesota accent. I just love that.
Yeah, but the movie fights one has been pretty fun. We're coming up on maybe do something fun for the 50th. I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah. Well, I definitely have sent them off to Andy on occasion, just to say, here, these guys are doing your show.
Yeah, it'd be fun to incorporate him somehow.
Yeah.
Talk to him. We should work something out.
Yeah, definitely. If he wants I know he came on one of the other people's podcasts on Ricochet a long time ago when he was just coming back into the world. So, and he's definitely looking forward to get some people in who are different types of people who have some like social commentators and other people, movie reviewers. And I sent him off our Titus episode for him to watch. And I said, yeah, and if you ever want to get Armand White on your show, the Titus is the connection.
Yeah, one of the things I always appreciated about Andy was that, he always would say no politics. And when you're dealing with different people in different movies, that's really easy to come into play. But just keeping it about the creative process, and movies are kind of supposed to be an escape from that type of thing,
right?
And I've always appreciated that about him.
Okay, well, we've been talking for a good hour now, and I think I always like to leave out on a high note. I do have a few announcements for people. So we're still trying to work out the logistics but we're talking to St. Augustine to do one of our shows soon, but he's in Pakistan. So trying to figure out what time zone syncs for both of us. And also Randy Wovoda is trying to put together a science fiction panel that we'll be doing in a couple of weeks. And it's going to be him, myself, Arahant, a few others. That he's put together for this one. So it's going to be that's going to be a special show. Don, you don't have to be there. They all know you're not the sci-fi guy.
I'm not the sci-fi guy.
Hartman, Von Au, and Elsie will be part of that. So that'll be March, Sunday, March 14th, and I'll probably have it out on Monday.
Nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, and if any of our listeners or viewers want to come on board.
Oh yeah, definitely private message me before I private message you. I always like going through the group first, but we sometimes start running low on members, and like I don't always get like a hit back from people saying they want to do it because of various reasons, and that's life. Okay, well, thanks for coming on, Vince, and we'll be seeing you in the comments.
Opportunity. Appreciate you get a chance to talk to you guys.
Yep.
And you'll plop the book links on there, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.